Picture this. You're sorting through a dusty box in the attic when you spot a familiar glint at the bottom. It's a 1980 quarter, but something about it doesn't quite line up with the everyday change jingling in your pocket. That moment when you realize an ordinary piece of pocket change could carry a four or even five-figure surprise is pure collector's magic. Today, we're zeroing in on the 1980 quarter, a coin that, at first glance, seems as common as any, but holds secrets that seasoned numismatists prize. Stick around, because these subtle quirks could make the difference between pocket change and a showroom centerpiece. The story of the 1980 quarter begins in an era when coinage was in transition, with rising metal costs nudging the U.S. Mint towards shavings of copper cladding over a core of pure copper. In 1980, quarters were struck at Philadelphia and Denver, each bearing the iconic profile of George Washington sculpted by John Flanagan. Most of these pieces were routine. Over 4 billion coins produced at Philadelphia alone, yet in that massive output hides a handful of anomalies. These variations can be traced back to die polishing practices and the switch from silver-based planchets of earlier decades to the economically motivated clad planchets that characterize post-1965 Washington quarters. Identifying the rare 1980 quarter starts with a careful eye on mint marks and minting errors. First, the mint mark. Look for a small D just to the right of Washington's ponytail. The Denver Mint produced its share of the rarities, but the key error to spot isn't the mint mark's presence or absence. Instead, it's the doubled die obverse, where the date and lettering appear slightly shadowed or doubled on the coin's face. Under magnification, genuine examples show a distinct doubling of Liberty and the date, 1980, itself. Equally coveted is the off-center strike, where the coin's design drifts from its intended center by up to several millimeters. These are scarcities. Only a few dozen of each variety have surfaced among collectors, making authentication and grading critical. When it comes to dollars, the market has spoken. Circulated 1980 double die quarters can fetch anywhere from $150 for lower grade examples up to $1,200 in near mint state, depending on the clarity of the doubling. Auction records tell a similar tale. A PSA graded MS65 double die piece sold for $2,300 in late 2023, while a spectacular MS67 example pushed past $5,000 on a major auction platform earlier this year. Off-center rarities have even more dramatic swings. A mild off-center shift of 3 to 4 millimeters might bring $500 in an EF40 grade, but a 7 millimeter deviation on a pristine MS66 coin commanded over $7,800 in an April 2024 heritage auction. Keep in mind that these figures can fluctuate based on rarity perception and the ever-shifting whims of the collector community. Beyond numbers, the tale of the 1980 quarter includes intriguing episodes that blur the lines between mint errors and mint mischief. One story involves a Midwestern state collector who purchased a small hoard of unsearched rolls from a local bank. Among them was a perfectly centered double die quarter, later traced through die records to one of the earliest weeks of the Denver Mint's 1980 production cycle. Word spread through coin clubs like wildfire, and within days, dealers across 3 states had re-examined every 1980 quarter in sight. Another anecdote recounts a mystery roll handed down through generations in Ohio. Sealed since 1980, it contained 5 off-center quarters, each shifted at different degrees, enough to fuel speculation that a single misfed batch had escaped detection. When evaluating condition-based value, the gradations are stark. A heavily circulated double die quarter, showing only ghostly hints of doubling, might still clear $100 at auction, but move that piece up to an EF45 grade, with sharp lettering, minimal wear on Washington's hair curls, and solid luster, and you're staring at a potential $450, $550 sale. Mint state pieces escalate quickly. MS63 examples typically sell in the $700, $900 window, while MS65 specimens could breach the 4-figure mark. Off-center quarters, meanwhile, see their value tied directly to the degree of misalignment. Any shift under 2 millimeters is considered minor and fetches modest premiums, but dramatic off-centers beyond 6 millimeters transform them into showstoppers. with pristine examples routinely commanding bids above $5,000. Before we wrap up this segment, remember that verifying authenticity is paramount. Double dies and off-centers are prime targets for overzealous counterfeiters or over-enthusiastic polishing. Always seek third-party grading from reputable services like PCGS or NGC. They'll confirm genuine mint errors, assign condition grades, and seal your treasure in tamper-proof holders. And when you're browsing local shows or online marketplaces, rely on trusted community forums and auction archives to gauge fair market value. With these insights in hand, you'll never look at a 1980 quarter the same way again. There's depth beyond its face value, stories etched in metal, and a market hungry for anything that deviates from the mundane. Stay sharp, check those edges under proper lighting, and prepare to uncover the rare marvels hiding in plain sight. When you're ready, we'll transition to our next featured treasure, the 1996 quarter, where yet another world of error varieties and hidden premiums awaits. Shifting gears from the 1980 variety, let's dive into the quarter that surprised everyone in the mid-90s, the 1996 Washington quarter. While most of these coins circulated without fanfare, a handful bore striking anomalies that have since become the holy grail for modern error collectors. If you thought the 80s offered plenty of intrigue, prepare yourself. These mid-decade quarters combine subtle doubling, misaligned strikes, and even die cracks that turn pocket change into conversation pieces. The backdrop for the 1996 quarter traces back to the U.S. Mint's ramped-up production at Philadelphia and Denver. With over 550 million pieces struck at Philadelphia and nearly 620 million at Denver, the 1996 run was massive, but not immune to human and mechanical quirks. By this point, the clad planchet formula was well established. Outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel sandwiching a pure copper core. Still, the transition from screw press to fully automated coin presses introduced opportunities for doubled dies, misfeeds, and cracked dies, each leaving a unique fingerprint. To spot a rare 1996 double die quarter, keep your loupe trained on the lettering and date. Unlike the bold doubling of earlier decades, the 1996 double die obverse often manifests as faint, ghost-like shadows along "In God We Trust" and the date 1996. You might notice a slight doubling on George Washington's profile, especially visible in the hairlines and the bevel of his chiton. Equally compelling is the double die reverse. The eagle's feathers and the words "United States of America" sometimes present a mirror image echo. Genuine examples are scarce. In over 30 years since 1996 rolled off the presses, fewer than a couple hundred certified specimens have surfaced, making third-party grading essential. Off-center strikes also appear in 1996 quarters, though they're rarer than in some earlier years. Here, the planchet shifts slightly before striking, causing the design to wander toward one edge. Mild off-centers might show just a sliver of blank metal, while dramatic shifts, 6 mm or more, play hide-and-seek with half the design. On a pristine 1996 quarter, even a 4 mm shift can elevate it from face value to four-figure territory, provided the coin's surface remains unscathed by post-mint damage. So what does the market say? For a circulated 1996 double die obverse graded VF 30, you're looking at roughly $75, $120, depending on the clarity of the doubling and overall eye appeal. Uncirculated MS 60 examples can fetch $250, $350, with the premium climbing to $900, $1, 200 for MS. 63 coins that show crisp doubling. Auction records underscore that top-tier examples break through $2,000. A single MS 65 double die obverse sold for $2,100 in a December 2024 heritage sale, thanks to mirror-like fields and textbook doubling on the date. Off-centers have similar climbs. Modest 2 mm shifts in circulated condition hover around $200, while an MS 64 with a dramatic 7 mm offset broke $3,500 in mid-2024. A fascinating footnote to these errors involves die cracks, fine fissures that spiderweb across the coin's surface. On rare 1996 specimens, You'll sometimes find a hairline crack cutting through the reverse's sunken fields, tracing from the rim into the eagle's wing. Collectors prize these for their aesthetic drama. The crack highlights the pressure exerted by the coin press and offers a glimpse into the material stresses at the moment of striking. Circulated cracked die pieces can still command $60, $100, but uncirculated cracks on a perfectly centered 1996 quarter in MS 63 condition often exceed $400. One of the most talked about capsules of 1996 quarters came from a hoard discovered in the American Midwest in early 2023. A small community bank sold a sealed deposit of 20,000 uncirculated rolls, many of which had never been sieved for errors. Enthusiastic collectors cracked open the rolls and found a dozen double dies and several off-centers, sparking a frenzy in local coin shops. Word spread via online forums, and within days numismatists across 3 states were examining every 1996 quarter they could find, hoping to replicate that hoard's success. Another anecdote centers on a Denver Mint employee who, in a short-lived experiment, tweaked the pressure settings on one press station. Though the change went unnoticed in real time, the recalibrated station produced a handful of quarters with a distinctive lamination error, a thin layer of metal peeling near the rim. While not as visually dramatic as a doubled die, lamination errors are infinitely collectible, and a pristine MS 66 lamination quarter recently sold for $1,600 in a specialist auction dedicated to modern errors. When it comes to grading and authenticity, the modern era demands vigilance. Subtle doubling can be replicated by mechanical alteration or post-mint doubling, where a coin is struck more than once through accidental feed. The telltale sign of genuine doubled dies is die polish lines interrupted by doubled elements, rather than smoothed or re-engraved areas. Similarly, off-center strikes must show crisp, incomplete design boundaries rather than polished edges. Always seek certification from PCGS or NGC, which will not only confirm the error but also guard against creative counterfeits. For condition-based valuations, circulated VF 25 quarters with faint doubling might still find buyers at $60, $80, whereas YEF 45 pieces, with sharp details on Washington's cap and defined eagle feathers, can garner $200, $300. Once you hit mint state, the scale tips dramatically. MS 60 to MS 62 double dies range from $300 to $600. MS 63 examples climb to $900, $1, 200, and MS 64 plus coins, especially those with full cartwheel luster, regularly break the $1, 500 threshold. Off-centers follow a parallel curve, with uncirculated shifts of 4 mm or more topping $2, 000 in high grade. What makes the 1996 quarter so compelling isn't just the numbers, it's the era it represents. This was a decade straddling traditional coinage and modern minting, with evolving technology inadvertently creating collectibles that weren't even on anyone's radar. These quarters capture a moment when the mint's automated presses were still finding their rhythm, producing errors that now stand as proof of the human and mechanical stories behind every roll of change. As you dive into your pocket change or sift through unsearched rolls, remember the lessons from both the 1980 and the 1996 quarters. Look beyond the obvious, train your eye on lettering and alignment, and never underestimate the value of a subtle anomaly. Whether it's a whisper-thin double-die shadow or a bold off-center shift, these mid-decade errors turn everyday coins into prized rarities. With this in mind, keep your loop handy, check those edges under bright light, and get ready. The next time you stumble upon a 1996 quarter, you might just be holding a modern minting marvel in the palm of your hand.